today's episode, we will be focusing on a specific style of learning called problem-based learning, or PBL. Our goal is to try to get a better understanding of what is problem-based learning, how it is used, and how it can best prepare students for lifelong learning while addressing content for standardized tests. Let's first take a look at what exactly is problem-based learning and how it was first started.
We'll be focusing on a specific learning style called problem-based learning. Our goal is to try to get a better understanding of what is problem-based learning, how it is used, and how can problem-based learning best prepare students for lifelong learning while addressing content for standardized tests. Let's first take a look at what exactly is problem-based learning and how it was first started. Come on!
Coming! Problem-based learning is experiential hands-on learning. It is organized around the investigation and resolution of messy real-world problems. The first uses of problem-based learning can be traced back to the late 1960s at the Medical School of McMaster's University in Canada. The idea was that patients could be treated in multiple different ways to fix a single problem or issue. An example could be seen in treating a patient with an anxiety disorder. One doctor may prescribe the patient with an anti-anxiety medication, while another may suggest psychotherapy. Two different approaches that both can result in helping the patient. Let's break down problem-based learning a little further. Here are the main goals of PBL. Number 1. Construct an extensive and flexible knowledge base. Students should have the background knowledge and skills prior to the lesson so that they are able to complete the lesson effectively. Number 2. Develop effective problem-solving skills. Through the PBL lesson, students should develop skills such as the ability to analyze a problem, recognize barriers in the problem, come up with possible solutions, and utilize multiple resources. Number 3. Become effective collaborators. Through PBL, students must work in groups. Hence, they must learn how to effectively communicate and cooperate with one another to solve the problem. Number 4. Become intrinsically motivated to learn. Instead of mere memorization of facts and data, problem-based learning is based on solving real-life situations. For students, this could help to create motivation because they can actually apply their skills to real-life situations. Number 5. Develop self-directed lifelong learning skills. Through PBL, teachers serve as facilitators rather than a lecturer or master of content. In other words, the teacher's role isn't to lead the lesson, but instead to help guide it. Thus, learning is all student-driven. The teacher will only step in if there are major problems within the group or if there's a confusion during any time. Now that we know the basic goals of problem-based learning, how exactly does PBL work in the classroom? Let's take a look at this model called the problem-based learning tutorial process.
The first step in problem-based learning is students are presented the problem scenario. For step 2, students analyze the problem by identifying relevant facts. In this example, Rochelle realizes she needs to clean up the spilled drink. For step 3, students will begin to generate a hypothesis for possible solutions. During this process, students may choose different paths to clean up the spill. Now, while some of these ideas might not be the most effective idea out there, as long as the goal, which is cleaning up the spill, is achieved, then it doesn't really matter which path they choose, as long as they accomplish their goal. There really is no one exact right answer. Students will be prepared if the same problem occurs later on in the future. Now, this is only one example of problem-based learning.
To learn more about how problem-based learning works, we interviewed 2 teachers and the technology coordinator at a local K-8 charter school called the Bloomington Project School. We asked them about creating and implementing problem-based curriculum and also about how they use technology to do this. Founded in 2009, the Bloomington Project School is a state-funded charter school located in downtown Bloomington, Indiana. The school is in an urban setting and is a remodeled retiree community center. They use a nearby city park, which has a new playground built by volunteers and paid for by the grant the school wrote, for recess and outdoor activities. They are also involved in garden projects with local nonprofit agencies. The following statements are taken from their original charter written in 2007. The Project School's educational philosophy is centered on the concepts of developing positive habits of heart, mind, and voice, and teacher-designed project, problem, and place-based curriculum. Demographically, the project school is pretty similar to a number of the schools that surround it in Bloomington. About 42% of the project school students are eligible for free or reduced lunch. This is comparable to the local school district, MCCSC, whose average eligibility for this program is about 38%. The project school is ethnically slightly more diverse than MCCSC schools, but is fairly typical for this area. ISTEP scores, while improving every year, are lower than the state average and lower still than the MCCSC scores. Norm Gwaltney is the project school's Technology and Fusion Coordinator. He oversees the school's computer networks and helps the teachers get the technology tools they need for their classrooms. The school uses technology, in the form of MacBooks and iPads, extensively, with a 1-to-1 ratio of computers or iPads for every student in the school. We asked Norm 4 questions.
I think it's the right combination of hardware and software that's important for supporting problem-based learning. This year our school received an innovations grant and we chose to buy iPads with a wireless keyboard for each of our middle school students. So they have the iPad for the whole year. The school, we provide the apps based on whatever projects or things the students are working on. In the case right now, we had a poetry unit that teachers were working on, and we downloaded the National Poetry Foundation's app, and they were using that in the classroom. So that's an example of kind of quickly updating and getting teachers what they need as far as resources for the students. I also believe that software is important for it too, you know, without having to bring software and buy it and load it on computers. We've chosen Google Apps for that, so our students have an email account, they have shared calendar, shared documents, Google Drive, so they have a lot of great tools available for them through Google Apps. So immediately, like in a project the other day, I noticed that students in their group, they just start by creating a shared document, which is really the way a lot of adults are working these days. So I feel that combination of hardware and easy to use hardware that's easy to maintain, and that's been so far fairly easy to maintain, as well as software available to students. In this case, it takes a lot of pressure off the network, off me. Google Apps is free to schools, so it's the perfect combination, I think, for students to do really excellent work on projects and throughout their day. The main challenge, I think, in implementing technology and problem-based learning for our teachers is the time, and to really take the time and practice and use the tools to make sure they're working like you think they're going to work. So that's kind of where my job falls. My position is called Technology and Fusion Coordinator. It allows me to spend time at planning meetings and in the classroom with teachers doing that implementation part and kind of coming up with the ideas and testing them out, making sure they work, and integrating them into the unit. Also, we're doing maps on the walls, so there are maps of Asia on the wall, and students are going to use QR codes to kind of connect to the work that they've done and post it to the web. So their shared documents in Google becomes a QR code, and when families come in for like Asia Day, they'll be able to use their phones and kind of scan those QR codes and go to the student work online. I think the most useful skills are understanding the tools that are out there available, both software and hardware tools, and making really good choices about which one of those to use. Changes will continue to move toward mobile devices, thinner, faster, more, not necessarily more capacity since we're doing a lot of cloud storage, but thinner, faster. And I think one of the biggest changes is going to be in the books. I think that's happening slowly right now, but books will be changing to accessibility on tablets, on any device, and it'll be multimedia, so you'll have video, you'll have web links, you'll have a lot more than just what books can offer. So these multimedia books will be more engaging to students, because I think no matter what people of my generation think about it, students have shorter attention spans, they need more to engage them. And so I think that's going to be the biggest change in K-12 education.
Emily Rosenking teaches in the 4th and 5th grade classroom. She, along with all the teachers at the school, use problem-based learning as a central strategy in their lesson planning. We asked Emily 5 questions.
I've used problem-based learning as an inquiry method in my classroom. In math, this has been a great entry point toward applying math concepts I'm teaching to real-life situations. It's helped students answer the age-old math question of why do I need to know this, and have real-life examples of times that they'll use the math that we're learning. I've also used PBL to help students engage in social studies and science, and I found it a very useful and engaging method with a lot of entry points for a lot of students. One problem with problem-based learning is that it can be really difficult to create a rubric beforehand to measure student work according to a rubric, because everyone is different and everyone kind of enters a problem from a different place. Every student in my classroom is so different, and their projects turn out so differently that it can become kind of restraining to hold them all to the same exact rubric. As much as I really value having formal assessments and rubrics, which I do use frequently in reading, writing, and math, it feels harder to hold students to the exact same rubric for problem-based learning. Another problem is the group work aspect, which I think is a problem and a benefit in a lot of ways. Teachers have to be really, really purposeful when assigning small groups and partnerships, and I think that in some cases that can totally make or break the whole experience of problem-based learning. I find that it's very important that the students work well together and learn to work well together if they don't. I think that that is just such a valuable lesson beyond what's being learned in the problem. I think learning to work well with others is just a lifetime skill that comes from problem-based learning. One way that I think technology can be used to support PBL is that it would be great if every student could have an iPod Touch to use to take pictures or record videos or voices, or to use to take notes. And I think that having the data from the iPod Touches would be a great tool to collect data on how the students did the work and how engaged they were across the problem. 4th and 5th grade is a great age group. I think they're old enough to really understand complex concepts and problems, and then they're also young enough to not be hindered by feeling like they're going to fail or being afraid to try something. I think my age group of 4th and 5th grade is a perfect age group for PBL. My students take iStep, though I don't feel it really hampers our ability to do inquiry-based learning. We don't do any inquiries in math or science in the weeks right before iStep, which is fine with me because we do test taking as a genre kind of to study test taking, so we're looking at it from an authentic kind of perspective as readers and writers and problem solvers.
Thanks for watching today's episode. I hope you learned something about problem-based learning. Bye-bye!